Hare Krishna. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna, 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare Krishna. Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada. Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada, Jaya Guru Deva, 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 Jaya Guru Deva. Jayam Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajakacharya Ashtataratvata Shri Srimad His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai. Prem Se Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shama Kunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhan Ki Jai. Shri Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai. Shri Mayapur Dham Ki Jai. Shri Goloka Dham Ki Jai. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai. Gaur Premanandi. All glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to Shri Shri Guru and Gauranga. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. We're reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 10, Chapter 47, Text 47. Right? Yep. I think this is the wrong one, yeah. Param sokyam hi nairashyam. Param sokyam hi nairashyam. Svairin-yapya pingala. Svairin-yapya pingala. Tajjanati nam na Krishne. Tajjanati nam na Krishne. Tatapyasha duratyaya. Tatapyasha duratyaya. Param sokyam hi nairashyam. Svairin-yapya pingala. Taj janati namna Krishne tatapyasha duratyaya param sokyam hinairashyam svairin yapyaha pingala Taj janati namna Krishne tatapyasha duratyaya param sokyam hinairashyam svairenyapyaha pingala Taj janati namna Krishne tatapyasya duratyaya. Anyone else? Param, the highest. Sokyam, happiness. He, indeed. Nairashyam, indifference. Svairini, unchaste. Api, although. Aha, stated. Pingala, the prostitute Pingala. Tat, of that. Janatinam, who are aware. Na, for us. Krishne, focused on Krishna. Tata api, nevertheless. Asha, the hope. Duratyaya, is impossible to transcend. Translation. Indeed, the greatest happiness is to renounce all desires, as even the prostitute Pingala has declared. Yet even though we know this, we cannot give up our hopes of attaining Krishna. Please repeat. Indeed, the greatest happiness is to renounce all desires, as even the prostitute Pingala has declared. Yet even though we know this, we cannot give up our hopes of attaining Krishna. Purport by the disciples of Srila Prabhupada. The story of Pingala is narrated in the 11th canto, 8th chapter of Srimad Bhagavatam. And Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur's commentary. Therefore, you should give up all hopes of attaining him. And the gopis say, but we cannot give him up. It is difficult for anyone to give up hope concerning Krishna. Pingala had desires for men other than Krishna, and therefore she could give up those desires. Jiva Goswami writes, the greatest happiness is definitely detachment. Even the prostitute Pingala has said this. Normally prostitutes would not say this, but that should not be considered. We do not know this. Though we know that detachment is the greatest happiness, we have desire for Krishna, which is difficult to overcome. We cannot give up that desire to attain him. Why? The son of Nanda attracts our minds. The desire for association with Krishna, which is unfulfilled, agitates us. The minds of those gopis are always absorbed in me, and their lives are ever devoted to me. For my sake, they have abandoned everything related to their bodies, as well as Dharma and other people. I alone am their dearest beloved, and indeed their very self. Therefore, I take it upon myself to sustain them in all circumstances. This is a quote from Bhagavatam 10:46-4. You should not think that we are like prostitutes. Krishna himself says, Dharayant yatya kritshrena praya pranan katanchana pratyagamana sandeshar balavyo me mad atmikaha. Simply because I have promised to return to them, My fully devoted cowherd girlfriends struggle to maintain their lives somehow or other. This is a quote from Srimad Bhagavatam 10:46-6. The gopis use a comparison of a lecher enjoying many women. Kagavita palam vriksham bhuktva chati tayo griham dagdham mrigastataranyam jara bhuktva ratam striyam. Birds abandon a tree when its fruits are gone. Guests a house after they have eaten. Animals a forest that has burnt down, and a lover the woman he has enjoyed, even though she remains attached to him. Srimad Bhagavatam 10:47-8. To remove doubt that they are of this nature, they say, Api bata madhupuryam arya putro dunasate. O Uddhava, does Krishna, our husband, now reside in Mathura? Bhagavatam 10:47-21. In front of the greatest devotee Uddhava, they give up all their reservations and speak directly. Om Jnanati Mirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurum Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Nama Om Shnupadaya Krishna Pashtaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhakti Vedanta Swamiti Namane Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pashyatya Deshutarine. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvetam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakan Vitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagapate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostate Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanusute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. This chapter is entitled The Song of the Bee. It's quite a long chapter. It has like 69 verses. And right now we're in this section, is 14 verses where the gopis are talking to Uddhava after they heard Krishna's message. And they were very pleased from hearing Krishna's messages, and his words revived their memories, it says. And so they address Uddhava in 14 verses. And I just wanted to summarize those 14 verses, just so we can see the flow of what they're saying. And it's actually described by the acharyas that different gopis are speaking these words. It's not just like one gopi. So different gopis are speaking. And while they're speaking, they're like their emotions are coming up in different ways. And we can see that flow of emotions of their pure love for Krishna. So first thing they say is, oh, it's good that Krishna killed Kamsa and he's living happily with his well-wishers and friends. And is he bestowing pleasure upon the city women of Mathura now? He's very expert in conjugal affairs. How can he not be entangled by the women of Mathura? Does he ever remember us? Does he recall the nights in Vrindavan where we would do the rasa dance together? Will he return here and revive us who are burning in grief? Will he save us as Indra saves a forest with his rain, pouring rain, water-bearing clouds? But why should Krishna come here? After winning a kingdom, killing his enemies, and marrying daughters of kings, he is satisfied there. He's fully fulfilled within himself, and he automatically achieves whatever he desires. That's from yesterday's verse. And then this verse. Oh, so indeed, the greatest happiness would be if we could just become detached from Krishna, just like Pingala said in the Bhagavatam. But we cannot give up our desire for Krishna. Who? And then that's today's verse. We can't give up our desires for Krishna, even though that would be the best thing if we could just give up attachment. And then they're saying in the next verses, who can give up talking about Krishna? O Uddhava, Krishna enjoyed these forests of Vrindavan. Now all these forests remind us of Krishna. Wherever we go, we're just reminded of Krishna. And we see Krishna's footprints in the ground. And we can never forget him everywhere we look. How can we forget him who has stolen our hearts with the charming way he walks, his generous smile, his playful glances, and his honey-like words? And then the last verse that they say in this section is, O Krishna, O destroyer of all suffering, O Govinda, please lift your Gokula out of the ocean of distress in which it is drowning. So we're just seeing the different flow of emotions while the gopis are speaking these words. And today's verse, they're making a very interesting point. They're saying, we would be happy if we could give up attachment. And it actually, that's a philosophical point that we'll discuss today, how if we give up, attachment actually causes suffering. When we're attached to something, it actually causes us suffering. And if we can detach ourselves from that, in our mind, we can be relieved of that suffering. So it's a philosophical point. And they're quoting the famous Pingala, who was... I'll talk about it in the Bhagavatam. There's a section about her and how she discovered that actually detachment relieves us of suffering. But it's interesting that the gopis are using this in context to Krishna, and they're saying, we want to give up attachment to Krishna, but we can't stop thinking about it. We can't give that up. It's duratyaya, they're saying. You know that verse in Bhagavad Gita where Krishna says, Daiviyesha gunamai mama maya duratyaya, this maya is very difficult. Duratyaya means difficult or very hard to overcome. And it's very hard for us to overcome our attachment for Krishna. And it's interesting because we all have the opposite problem where we're just like so absorbed in this material world. It's hard for us to be attached to Krishna. We're so attached to other things. And they're having the opposite problem. They're trying to give up attachment to Krishna. Not really, of course, but they're just saying that. But they can't because, they're completely in love with Krishna. They've given themselves completely to Krishna. So we'll talk a little bit about first how attachment causes suffering and then how detachment causes happiness according to Pingala. And then we'll talk about how to become detached from material things. So first of all, how does attachment cause suffering? Well, when the mind becomes attached to something, it leads in a downward spiral, according to Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita, that what happens first is that the senses contemplate, like they see something, and then our mind contemplates on it, like, oh, I want to enjoy that. And as soon as our mind gets attached, then kama develops, lust or desire, selfish desire. We're like, oh, I want that for myself. And then after that, we get frustrated because nothing in this world really fully satisfies the soul. It's either temporary, we like it, but it's temporary, or it's not what we expected, or it's, we don't get it. In any way, it's always going to be frustrating. And so finally, we get the anger develops because the desire wasn't fulfilled. So anger comes up in our heart. And after anger, delusion comes. We become bewildered. And our intelligence gets bewildered. Our memory is lost of what our real goal is. And finally, we fall back down into the material pool and we go through the same cycle again and again and again. So that's Krishna's talking about how the downward spiral happens. When the mind gets attached to something, then it leads us down. Actually, even recently in our NC State class, there was a discussion about expectations. People were coming up to their own conclusion that in relationships, when you have expectations of somebody, then automatically you're setting yourself up for disappointment. As soon as you have some expectation, you're setting yourself up for disappointment. That was something that the students were actually coming up with that comment themselves, like they realized that themselves. And we have that understanding that when we go through life with an idea of how we want things to be, we're setting ourselves up to be disappointed and frustrated because things don't end up the way we want to be, way we want it to be. There's an analogy in the Shastras of this person, this disciple went to a guru and said, "Can you tell me how I can be free from Maya?" And the guru said, "Okay, later I'll tell you." And then the disciple saw later the guru holding onto a tree and crying out, "Let me go, let me go, let me go, tree, let me go." And the disciple saying, "What are you doing?" And he said, "This tree is not letting me go." He said, "You're the one who's holding on to the tree." And then the guru let go and looked at the disciple and said, "Yes, that's how we're holding on to the illusory ideas that we have in our head and to Maya." And that's why we're the ones who are holding on to it. It's not that Maya is holding on to us. We're holding on to her. And there's another example that I've heard of. If you see monkeys before in Vrindavan or other places, they're really, really naughty and they like to get into things and eat things and just they're very rambunctious and they go everywhere. And I don't know if this analogy is something that really happened or whatever, but there was a jar, like a really narrow jar with some, or maybe this is a way they catch monkeys or something. That's not, like with some food item inside it, and then the monkey gets his hand in there, tries to get the food item, and because they have to grip it, they can't pull their hand back out of the jar. Like they could get it in, but as soon as they make a fist, they can't pull their hand back out. And they're struggling, and they don't realize that if they would just give up that attachment to that thing, and they could be released. So in the same way, we struggle a lot because of that, of attachments. And it may not be physical attachments, it could even be subtle attachments. I was thinking for myself, how does this apply to me? And I was thinking, a lot of times how it applies to me is in a subtle way, where all of a sudden I will notice in myself a kind of anxiety or stress or like kind of an irritation, and then it's a red flag to me that, oh, I'm probably having some attachment there to having things go my way or having people respond in a certain way that I want. And those are usually the signs that, okay, that I have some attachment there. And if I can somehow or other let go a little bit and turn to Krishna, then suddenly we feel a difference. We feel relief. So one example in the Mahabharata of someone who was very, very attached and it was causing him so much misery was Dhritarashtra. Dhritarashtra was the blind king. He had 100 sons, and he was so attached to being the king himself, and somehow he did end up being the king because his brother passed away, but then he transferred that attachment to his eldest son. I want my son to be the next king. And he couldn't let go of that attachment, even though everyone was telling him, your son is he won't be a very good king. He has very negative qualities. He's envious. He's greedy. He's not going to be a very good ruler, and you should give up that attachment. Besides that, Yudhishthir, who is your nephew, he's elder, he's qualified, he will be the next king. But Dhritarashtra could not give up that attachment. So because he was holding on to that attachment, whenever Duryodhana or anybody else came to him with some plans, conspiracies, how to get rid of the Yudhishthir and the Pandavas, Dhritarashtra went along with it. He would just quietly go along with it because he was holding on to that attachment. Oh, I just want my son to be the king. Whatever happens, I will just he was already blind, but he was spiritually blind too. He just wanted to not see what was happening so that he wanted his dreams to be fulfilled. And it was causing him pain after pain, misery after misery after misery. And at the end, all of his sons died in the battle of Kurukshetra. How painful. And he was, only at the very end, when all of his hopes in this material world are dashed, then he could actually hear. It was first time that when Vidura came back to the kingdom and gave him good advice, only then did it register and like sink in. Oh yeah, maybe you're right. Maybe I am, foolishly attached to something that's not good for me. And he was able at that point, so much after all his sons had died, all his kingdom was, everything was taken away from him, and only at that point was he able to like understand, and he was able to give up attachment and go to the forest and practice spiritual life. So sometimes we have to learn it the hard way to have, when the material energy just kind of takes everything away and our dreams are just dashed like that. But hopefully, if we can learn the lesson before all of that happens, that we can learn detachment as we go in life and just slowly, okay, how can I take more shelter of Krishna in this situation instead of holding on to my hopes of being happy in this world? So how does detachment bring happiness? And what is the story of Pingala that was in the Bhagavatam is mentioned? So in the Bhagavatam, in the 11th canto, Srimad Bhagavatam, there's this conversation between the Avaduta Brahmana. And he's mentioning that he has many gurus, he said. He looks in nature and he finds gurus in nature that inspire him. He looks out, he sees the hawk, and how the hawk reminds him of, a certain thing, or the fish, or the trees. He has all the different aspects of nature give him lessons in his spiritual life. So everywhere he looks, he's seeing how everyone is guiding him in his spiritual journey. And he heard of this prostitute named Pingala and how she became detached, and that also taught him a lesson about detachment. So this lady, one night, she was hoping for customers, and she was standing outside in the doorway, and she was waiting and waiting and waiting. Oh, maybe this person will stop. Maybe this person, this person looks really rich. Maybe he'll stop. And she was waiting and waiting, and nobody would stop. And she was getting more and more frustrated and upset and anxious. She was getting so anxious. And then, full of anxiety and disappointment, suddenly a great detachment came into her heart. And as soon as she became detached, suddenly happiness came in her. She's like, wow, that was amazing. As soon as she let go of that attachment, suddenly she became happy. And the prostitute felt disgusted with her material situation and thus became indifferent to it. Indeed, detachment acts like a sword, cutting to pieces the binding network of material hopes and desires. Now, she began to sing a song telling about her situation. And this is a very beautiful, it's like a few verses. This is Canto 11, Chapter 8. And she began to sing. I like that they just say it as a song because, this is something that was her realization, her practical realization, and she made it into a song. And we can still sing that song to remember that lesson. And sometimes in life that's helpful when we have realizations to make that into an actual practical thing for ourselves, either a song or sharing it with somebody, because then it becomes really a deep ingrained realization. So she said, I'm such a fool that I've given up the service of that person who is eternally situated within my heart and is actually the most dear to me. The most dear one is the Lord of the universe, who is the bestower of real love and happiness and the source of all prosperity. Although he is in my own heart, I have completely neglected him. Instead, I have ignorantly served insignificant men who can never satisfy my real desires and who have simply brought me unhappiness, fear, anxiety, lamentation, and illusion. Oh, how I have uselessly tortured my own soul, she's saying. Certainly, in this city of Videha, I alone am completely foolish. I neglected the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who wards us everything, even our original spiritual form, and instead I desire to enjoy sense gratification with many men, the Supreme Personality of Godhead is absolutely the most dear one for all living beings because he is everyone's well-wisher and Lord. He is the Supreme Soul situated in everyone's heart. Therefore, I will now pay the price of complete surrender. So she completely surrenders at this point to Krishna. Although I most stubbornly hope to enjoy the material world, somehow or other, detachment has arisen in my heart, and it is making me very happy. So usually we think of detachment as like, oh, I have to give up something, but she's feeling happiness. Therefore, the Supreme Personality of Godhead must be pleased with me. Without even knowing it, I must have performed some activity satisfying him. A person who has developed detachment can give up the bondage of material society, friendship, and love, and a person who undergoes great suffering gradually becomes, out of hopelessness, detached and indifferent to the material world. Thus, due to my great suffering, such detachment awoke in my heart. Yet how could I have undergone such merciful suffering? She calls it merciful suffering. If I were actually unfortunate. Therefore, I am in fact fortunate and have received the mercy of the Lord. He must somehow or other be pleased with me. So she's saying, because I got that detachment in my heart and I went through that suffering, it must be that Krishna is looking out for me. He's pleased with me somehow or other. With devotion, I accept the great benefit that the Lord has bestowed upon me. Having given up my sinful desires for ordinary sense gratification, I now take shelter of him, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. I am now completely satisfied, and I have full faith in the Lord's mercy. Therefore, I will maintain myself with whatever comes of its own accord. I shall enjoy life with only the Lord, because he is a real source of love and happiness. It's so beautiful. All the things she's saying here are so beautiful. In fact, if someone could make it into a song, that would be really wonderful, if they could rhyme it and make it into a beautiful song. I mean, her words are in Sanskrit, so they are in poetry, but if someone wanted to make this English into a poetry, it would be so beautiful. The intelligence of the living entity is stolen away by activities of sense gratification, and thus he falls into the dark well of material existence. Within that well, he is then seized by the deadly serpent of time. Who else but the Supreme Personality of Godhead could save the poor living entity from such a hopeless condition? When the living entity sees that the entire universe has been seized by the serpent of time, he becomes sober and sane, and at that time detaches himself from all material sense gratification. In that condition, the living entity is qualified to be his own protector. At that point, she gave up her desire, all her attachments. She just went inside her house. She sat down. She was smiling. She was feeling perfectly peaceful in her heart. All material desires. And then Avadhuta ends the section by saying, material desire is undoubtedly the cause of the greatest unhappiness, and freedom from such desire is the cause of the greatest happiness. Therefore, completely cutting off her desire to enjoy so-called lovers, Pingala very happily went to sleep. Now, how to give up attachment to material things, because it's not easy. It's really difficult, especially the subtle attachments. The gross attachments, I mean, that's a little easier. You can just say, okay, I'm giving up, and I just go live in the forest. I just give up my possessions and that. But subtly, are we really subtly giving up things? That's even harder, because you know, we have attachment to the way people treat us, the way we look, how we look in other people's eyes, or we have attachment to the way things go, the way we want things to go, like that. So how do we give up these material things, these material attachments? It's not so easy. And the only way, actually, as we read again and again and again in the scriptures, the only way to give up the attachment for material things is to have a better thing to be attached to. If that monkey who is holding that thing in the jar is like, can't get rid of it, I mean, you could tell the monkey as much as possible, just let go, but because the monkey is so attached to that, I want to eat that, like, But if all of a sudden you gave something better, like a big bunch of bananas, then maybe he'll just let go of that and just jump for the better thing. So if our mind has something better to do, then it will give up the lower thing. So that's the way. That's the only way, actually, because otherwise, we can try, but our mind will again jump again to the things, that we are attached to. So again and again, as we read in the scriptures, we'll see that in one section of the Bhagavatam, it says, Prabhupada writes in a purport, here it is clearly stated that attachment for one thing is the cause of bondage in conditioned life. And the same attachment, when applied to something else, opens the door of liberation. Attachment cannot be killed. It has simply to be transferred. Attachment for material things is called material consciousness. And attachment for Krishna or his devotees is called Krishna consciousness. Consciousness is therefore the platform of attachment. It is clearly stated here that when we simply purify the consciousness from material consciousness to Krishna consciousness, we attain liberation. Despite the statement that one should give up attachment, desirelessness is not possible for a living entity. A living entity, by constitution, has the propensity to be attached to something. We see that if someone has no object of attachment, if he has no children, then he transfers his attachment to cats and dogs. This indicates that the propensity for attachment cannot be stopped. It must be utilized for the best purpose. Our attachment for material things perpetuates our conditional state, but the same attachment, when transferred to the Supreme Personality of Godhead or his devotee, is the source of liberation. So that's the key. That's the key. That the way to get rid of we just transfer the attachment from the material to the spiritual. And that is the key to get out of that entanglement. What I've just read was from Canto 3, Chapter 5, Text 20. This is 3:5:20. So the translation of that verse is, every learned man knows very well that attachment for the material is the greatest entanglement of the spirit soul. But the same attachment, when applied to the self-realized devotee, opens the door of liberation. And then the purport Prabhupada talked about. So it's a very beautiful verse. I have to look up exactly what that chapter is about. I forget. Canto 3, Chapter 5, Text 20. And actually, I was thinking about, because in this verse it talks about how we should become attached to devotees. And I was thinking how that's actually another key, is become attached to devotees who have attachment to Krishna, because that's the way we'll get attachment to Krishna. And Srila Prabhupada, when he came to the West, everyone was so attracted to him because he was giving, he was just giving love. He was not taking anything from anybody. He had no motive. And people were so attracted to that. And he was giving the highest thing. And because people were becoming attached to Prabhupada, then they were able to give up those things. It was not that easy to give up, it was the hippie culture and, but because they became attached to Srila Prabhupada, they were able to give up all those unnecessary things that they were attached to before. And so if we can somehow or other become attached to a devotee of Krishna, that's also the very good key to getting out of material attachments. So we have read in this verse how the gopis are praying, oh, we should also give up attachment, just like prostitute Pingala has declared. But of course, we know that what they're talking about is the highest attachment, that definitely we don't want to give up attachment to Krishna. And they're saying we cannot give up our attachment to him, no matter how much we try. And that's what we strive for, to become so attached to Krishna that nothing can stop our flow of attraction to Krishna. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Enam Kanvandam Maravindanalaya Taksham Marhavatam Samasitam Buddha Sundarangam Kandar Agom Vidamaniya Vishesha Shobham Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Angani Asa Sakalen Priya Priti Manti Vasyanti Panti Kayanti Chiram Naganti Ananda Chinmaya Sadhu Jala Vigrahasya Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami 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 Govindam Oh, really? Oh, wow. Thank you. Page 22. Gauranga bolite habe pulaka sharira Hari Hari bolite na Yane babe nira Gauranga bolite Pulaka Sharira Hari Hari Bolitena Yane Babeni Gauranga Bolite Habe Pulaka Sharira Hari Hari Bolitena Yane Babenira Gauranga Bolite Habe Pulaka Sharira Hari Hari Bolitena Yane Babenira Arakabe Nitai Chande Karuna Hoibe Samsara Basana Mara Kabe Tu Chahabe Kabe Titai Chande Karuna Hoibe Samsara Bashana Mara Kabe Tu Chahabe Vishaya Chariya Kabe Shuddhabe Mana Kabe Hamaherabo Shri Vrindavana Chariya Kabe Shuddhabe Mana Kabe Hamaherabo Shri Vrindavana Rupa Raghunatha Pade Hoibe Akuti Kabe Hama Bhuja Bose Jugala Piriti Rupa Pade Hoibe Akuti Kabe Hama Buddha Bose Jugala Piriti Rupa Raghunatha Pade Rahu Mora Asha Prarthana Karaye Sada Narottama Dasa Raghunatha Pade Rahu Mora Asha Prarthana Karaye Sada Narottama Dasa Gauranga Bolite Habe Pulaka Sharira Hari Hari bolite na yane babe nira Gauranga bolite habe Pulaka sharira Hari Hari bolite na yane babe nira Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Jaya Radha Goloka Nanda Radha Goloka Nanda Shri Radhe Jaya Radha Goloka Nanda Radha Goloka Nanda Shri Radhe Jaya Giri Govardhan Jaya Giri Govardhan Jaya Giri Govardhan Jaya Giri Govardhan Jaya Gauranitai Jaya Gauranitai Gauranitai Jai Gauranitai Jaya Gauranitai Gauranitai Jaya Gaurani Jaya Jaya Prabhupada 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Jaya Gurudev Gurudev, Jaya Jaya Gurudev. Shri Shri Radha Golokananda ki jai, Giriraj Maharaj ki jai, Shri Shri Gornitai ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. When will that opportune moment come to me when I shiver upon chanting the name of Lord Gauranga? When will I cry while chanting Hare Krishna? When will I receive the causeless mercy of Lord Nityananda so that my desires for material enjoyment become insignificant? When will my mind be purified of material anxieties and desires so that I can understand Vrindavan? When shall I be very eager to study the books left by the 6 Goswamis so that I can understand the conjugal love of Radha and Krishna? The lotus feet of the 6 Goswamis are my only shelter. In constant separation from them, I remain Narottam Das.
Harinam Sankirtan tomorrow, and it's not going to rain tomorrow. It's going to be a nice day at Chapel Hill, 4:30 to 6:30 in front of the post office, and there's a football game, so there'll be lots of people there. Haribo. Chaito Darpanam Marjanam Bhava Mahadavagni Nirvapanam Treya Kairavya Chandrika Vitaranam Vidyavadu Jivanam Anandam Buddhi Vardhanam Pratipanam Purnamrita Swadanam Sarvatma Snapanam Param Vijayate Shri Krishna Sankirtanam Nam Namakari Bahuda Nija Sarva Shaktis Tatrapita Niyamita Smarane Nakala Etadrishita Vakripa Bhagavan Mamapi Durdaiva Midrishamihat Nanuraga Trinhada Pisu Nichena Tarora Pisu Hishuna Amani Namana Dena Kirtaniya Sadahari Nadanam Najanam Nasundarim Kavidam Va Jagadisha Kamaye Mama Janmani Janmani Ishvare Bhavatad Bhaktir Hoitaki Twai Ainanda Tanuja Kinkaram Patitam Mam Vishame Bhavam Buddha Kripayata Vapada Pankajas Tita Duli Sadrishim Vichintaya Nayanam Galarshu Daraya Varanam Gadgara Hridaya Gira Pulakarnishitam Vapukada Tavanamagrahane Bhavishyati Yugayatam Namishena Chakshusha Pravashayatam Shunayatam Jagat Sarvam Govindam Virahename Ashlisha Vapadamratam Panastumam Adarshanam Marmahata Karotuva Yatatata Bidadatulam Pato Matprananatastusa Eva Napara. Victory to the Sri Krishna Sankirtan, which cleanses the heart of all the dust accumulated for years and extinguishes the fire of conditioned